Everyone, I would like to call to order the first Bridgeport Board of Education meeting of 2022. I would like to call it, the meeting has been called to order, I'm sorry. And without further ado, we would like to acknowledge the Pledge of Allegiance. Right? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this moment, I would like to turn this into Mr. Secretary's hands for a roll call.
Sure, thank you. Christine Baptiste Perez.
Present.
Albert Benahan. Erica Castillo.
Present.
Michael Macaron.
Present.
Joseph Sokolovic.
Present.
Sybil Allen. John Weldon. Bobby Brown.
Present.
And Joseph Lombard, present. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. At this moment, we're going to open up the floor for student representatives to share reports on their individual schools, how it has been done. It has been put on the roll for student representatives from each school, one from each school to share their report. I believe we have one student I see, but if you could, because we're doing it virtually, if you could announce yourself and what school you attend, and then you have the time to share your report. If you don't have a report, you don't have to share, but just want to give you the opportunity.
Yeah, we have Layla Wilson here. Layla, would you like to share?
Hi, I'm Layla Wilson. I'm a senior at the biotech school at Fairchild Wheeler. I just have a short report just talking about some events we've done recently. In the past, we've done a food drive and also a toy drive and a toiletry drive as well. These drives included all three of the schools at Fairchild. They were put on by the National Honor Society as well as other students who brought in their donated items to school, and then at the end when we collected them, we donated them to the respected states. And at the moment, that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Is there any other students on with us?
I can go. Hi, I'm Avery Fleckner. I'm a senior at Fairchild Wheeler IT. So I just want to report a couple things that are happening in IT. So we'd like to thank the IT people, because they're not us IT people, the big IT people, because the motion capture lab was fixed. So we can start animating in a few of our classes. And also 2 teachers were granted donors chooses for their classroom, their classroom resources. We'd like to thank that. So we also had a successful transition back to school today from our long weekend, or some people break because they quarantined. IT, like our IT, is partnering with the BCYL, so kids, like little kids, can be learned how to code. So we'll have some of our kids after school go teach the little kids how to code. And so just some of our seniors are starting to hear back from colleges already. No big names, but college is college.
Thank you, Avery. Is there another student on? I can only see a few that's on the screen.
Yeah, I can go if that's fine.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm Alina from Aerospace at Fairchild Wheeler. So since the last meeting, we've held a skills day, which happened before we left for break, which is basically like students got to sign up for different events held in different classrooms where you could learn something new or do a different event. And that was really successful, and the students liked it a lot. And then now, like Avery said, we're coming back from our break, and since the semesters for us and the quarter is coming to an end, some kids are working on final projects. Since we're project-based learning, a lot of people are working on their finals and things like that. And then students, like seniors, are preparing for their capstone night, and then the rest of school is preparing for their science fair, which is next week on Thursday. It'll be held virtual, so there is a link on Fairchild's website, and everyone's allowed to attend if you'd like. But yeah,
Hi there.
that's what Fairchild's working on right now.
Awesome.
Hello.
We see you, Miss Allen. Let the record reflect Mr. Benahan and Miss Albert. Mr. Albert and Miss
Alan.
Miss Allen, sorry, that are now in the meeting. Thank you to our student representatives for sharing. Did we miss anyone?
We got a couple more, Ms. Brown.
Okay,
Michael
cool.
Michael Hemmings.
Hi, my name is Michael Hemmings from IT at Fairchild Wheeler. Pretty much Avery said almost everything that's happened so far. So I have nothing to say.
All right, thank you. And is Charmaine Elliott from any of the other schools?
I'm from Harding High School.
Go ahead, Charmaine.
So for the Christmas break, students designed like Christmas cards to give to healthcare workers to like thank them for what they have done and stuff. And as a senior, we've been preparing for colleges, like doing college applications and stuff. I've heard from some colleges already, and so is my classmates. My classmates also heard from some colleges already, and we're preparing for like helping other students finish their applications and stuff.
Thank you, Charmaine. Thank you very much.
All right. Anyone else, Mr. Sestani? Are we all set?
That's it, Ms. Brown.
Okay. Thank you, students, for sharing your reports. We appreciate all the work that you're doing and all the things that you have going on and transitioning back to school over the break. So we thank you for sharing today. And as we've mentioned in our last meetings, we know that you guys do have school tomorrow. So feel free at any time during this session to please log off. But you're also free to stay if you would like to add more into the conversation. At this moment, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Rita to let us know we're opening up for public comment. I believe she said we had 2 people that were in for public comment. So Rita.
Yes, at this time we would have Ana Batista, president of BEA, and she's online with us. So Miss Ana, you have the floor.
Thank you.
For public comment. So Rita.
Yes, at this time we would have Batista, president, and she's online with us. So Miss Ana, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Ana Batista, BEA president. The Bridgeport Education Association, the BEA, strongly supports the American Rescue Act premium pay, and particularly the inclusion of BPS classroom staff and its benefits. Our fine and dedicated Bridgeport teachers and support staff deserve to be included in this benefit, having risked their own health as well as that of their families every day. To provide the first-rate in-person education Bridgeport families wanted since August of 2020. Just like the first responders and other essential workers did for the city of Bridgeport and the state of Connecticut, our members work to keep the Bridgeport Public Schools open and running effectively. Indeed, our members helped the district reopen safely, and this was even before anyone was vaccinated, welcoming children and families back to the classroom, even as the recommended social distancing guidelines shrunk from 6 feet to 3. And in many of our classrooms, especially among the youngest and most specialized populations, it is much less than that. Keeping the business of the schools functioning for the Bridgeport community has always been and always will be our mission. We would not have been able to reopen and make gains had our members not come out and performed their highly specialized jobs. Please show your support by backing up your teachers and support staff staff by providing the premium pay. It would also go a long way for the membership to see the Board of Education and the Bridgeport community advocate and support them in this. And as I always say, together, we are Bridgeport strong. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Anna. Read it.
So, Miss Brown, just to notify you that the second caller, I did try to reach him, did not get an answer, sent an email with how to connect, and nothing. So we're not able to get our second speaker.
Okay. So this concludes our public comment section. At this moment, we're going to do the approval of the board minutes for December 20th, 2021, regular public meeting. Like to
So
Motion to
moved.
approve.
say it again?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right.
Second.
All right, so it's been approved by Mrs. Sokolovic and second by Mr. Lombard. All in favor?
Aye.
Any okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. It's officially approved for our board meeting minutes for December 20th. Any questions, concerns, edits, any of those things?
Just
Okay.
like to say that Sybil Allen has joined the meeting.
Oh, we got you, Miss Allen.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yes. All right. I would like to entertain a motion for December 4th, 2021 special meeting.
So move.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any
Abstain.
abstentions?
Abstain.
Mr. Lombard abstains.
Thank you.
All right. Motion carries. Any questions, concerns, edits? All right. Hearing none. Mr. Weldon is not here as of yet, I don't think. So we're going to just skip Chairman's report. And when he arrives, he can, I guess, give his report. So we're going to go to committee reports and referrals. Ad hoc district-wide branding initiative. We have not met. We will be meeting on December 19th at 6:30. I'm not sure if we're going to be meeting in person at that time, Mr. Testani, at the buildings, but if not, it'll be held via Teams, but it'll normally be at Central High School if we are meeting in person. Yes?
Oh, sorry. May I be recognized?
Yes.
You said December 19th. Did you mean January 19th?
January 19th. I'm sorry. That's
it's
a
okay.
Wednesday. Sorry.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. So yeah, so any referrals for this committee? All right. Hearing none, the next one is Contracts Committee. I think that is Mr. Weldon as well.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, so we're gonna leave that. Education, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I think that is Mr. Sokolovic, if I'm correct. I know he's under the weather, so.
Yes, I apologize. I was just trying to get the date. We have not met yet in the interim, and first meeting will be third Monday of January. I forgot the date. I'm sorry. I'm not.
It will be, if you don't mind me answering for you.
Yes, ma'am. Please.
Okay, hold on. I have it on my calendar. Actually, maybe I do not. Oh, yes, I do. The 18th of January.
Thank you so much.
And the time?
6:30 p.m. is what I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No problem. Any referrals? Okay, hearing none. The next one is Facilities. I believe that is Mr. Weldon as well. So we're gonna leave that. Finance is also Mr. Sokolovic, I believe.
Yes, finance will be meeting Wednesday, January 26th, hopefully in Central Library, because I believe we should be meeting the same way our students are, in person.
Okay. Any referrals to that committee? All right. Hearing none, the next one is governance. I believe that is also Mr. Weldon. He's not here. Then we have personnel. I believe that is Mr. Weldon as well. All right. And then students and families, Mr. Benahan.
Good evening, Ms. Brown, and good evening, everyone. Very happy to see everyone. My next meeting, student family, will be January 20, Thursday at 6 p.m. If it's to not be remote, it's maybe later, just depending on the situation with Mr. Testani and what's going on with the city, will be on the Central High School Library.
Perfect. Any referrals? Okay, hearing none. The last one is teaching and learning. That is Mrs. Akulovic.
Teaching and learning will be Tuesday, January 18th at 6 p.m. at Central, again in person.
Okay. All right, so that concludes our committee reports and referrals. Now we're going to open it up to Mr. Testani for
Ms. Brown.
superintendent report. Sorry.
Ms. Brown, maybe.
Ms. Brown,
Guys.
Okay. All right, so I hear both of you guys. We'll go to Miss Christine and then we'll go to Mr. Benahan.
Just want to make a motion to refer to committee for teaching and learning.
Okay.
So my motion to refer to committee is the outcome of discussions with the principals at Central, Bassick, and Hardin regarding the Educators Rising program that was mentioned on November 22nd, 2021's general meeting, that there would be discussions on the 23rd about extending the credits, college credit programs to those 3 high schools and opening it up for more Bridgeport public students. So I want to just make a motion to refer that to committee, teaching and learning.
Okay, I don't think you have to make a motion for it. I think we're just going to refer to Mrs. Akulovic.
Got it.
All right. Anything else, Miss Christine?
No, that's it at this time.
Okay. Mr. Benahan?
Yeah, Ms. Brown, I know you was going fast. I just want to know, I know Mr. Weldon's not here, no, that's okay. Mr. Weldon's not here for facility, but I just want to be sure if possible for the record, then the facility, we need to the update of the security. I say this from 2021, Mr. Stani know about this. So this is 2022, and we need to have to get information about facility that we didn't know. I already sent this email last year. So I just want to be sure for the record when Mr. John Weldon come, he can hear the meeting, be in for the refer about facility, about security, everything was very now what a Bishop School.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I don't know, Mr. Testani, if you would like to add to it. Other than that, we can leave it for Mr. Weldon, but floor is yours, Mr. Testani.
Thank you. Yes, so we, as mentioned earlier by our students, we have transitioned back to in-person learning from the break. I know that's caused some discussions and concerns, but overall, obviously last week we were in on Tuesday and experienced weather-related closures on Wednesday and Friday, which will be made up at the end of the school year, and Thursday being a planned day off. So we were back in school today. We seem to be doing extremely well, given the circumstances. We don't seem to have as many of the challenges that have been reported out in other districts across the state and across the country thus far. That could change, obviously. But overall, we didn't see that much of an increase last Tuesday to the number of students absent as we would probably normally see on a short week coming back from an extended vacation during the Christmas holiday. Prior to COVID, we would average anywhere on a day like that from 38 to 3,900 students absent. We were a little bit higher we ran a report and had close to 5,000 students absent. So there was comparable, not that significant of an impact, given, like I said, extended vacation, people traveling, short week returning back. We see similar numbers prior to 2019 when we would start school on a Thursday rather than a Monday at the beginning of the school year, where we would get anywhere from 37 to 3,900 students that would not attend the first couple of days on the reports that we ran. And it's much more improved when we start on a Monday. So just some data points. We are monitoring, we're working closely with the State Department of Education, the Governor's Office, Department of Public Health, monitoring the situation closely. We've made the statement a million times. I know some people still advocate for a remote learning experience. That is not an option. There are no districts in Connecticut offering remote learning as an option to families. So we are confident that schools are safe. We've proven that throughout the pandemic, that schools in Bridgeport, schools across the state are safe. The significant spike when people talked about it over the vacation week were not because of schools. We were out of school for 12 days. It was community spread. So we are hopeful to see now that everyone gets back to school. Holiday gatherings are over with for now. That the number of cases across Bridgeport in particular will start to decline. We're going to do our part here in the schools to make sure that we're responsible. We stress our mitigation strategies consistently with our administration at the building level to make sure that kids are safe and staff are safe. Mr. Sokolovich?
I'm starting to have some real concerns about the schools. We as a board just recently went to remote meetings just tonight because of the Omicron surge. I sat on the original reopening committees, and the set of standards we set forth in those reopening committees are much different than we're facing today. The positivity rate was much, much lower. The distance between seats was much bigger. It's a whole different animal right now, a whole different ball game. I mean, what are the consequences if we defy the governor's order and go not full remote, but split as we did before, which is in the plan in case of surges. That's in our plan that was approved by the governor, that if we have a surge, we can pivot. But now all of a sudden the governor's tying our hands and tying the hands of all these districts. I mean, what's the governor going to do if we go to hybrid learning again and ease out the classroom and give the parents the choice whether to send their children to school because as you know, I've advocated for the parent choice all along the whole thing. And we do have pivot points in our plan that the governor approved. And I think the governor shouldn't be tying our hands like that in our districts. And have you spoken to any other superintendents, and what are their feelings about Waterbury, New Haven, Bridgeport, Hartford, and other districts? If we all decide we want to go hybrid, is he going to punish all our districts and all our students and cause us to go all to make up all those school days? I think the governor's playing election games right now.
I don't know what the consequences would be. I can tell you from just brief conversations, I'm not going to divulge obviously with whom, in one of the districts that you've mentioned. There is no strong feeling to go in a hybrid model. I think the staff here specifically would have a hard time going backwards. I think you would put an extreme damper on morale. It was a very difficult experience last year for staff, educating both students in the classroom and at home. I think it's clear from the attendance numbers that parents are relying on us to educate their children, and also to provide the social emotional support that many of those students that we're speaking of that may have concerns desperately need. It has been a well documented, not just across the nation, but specifically here in Bridgeport, the challenges that many kids faced coming back to school and interacting appropriately with their peers. Many schools experienced a lot of conflict within the buildings. We've been able to work very, very hard with students and with families to finally get us back in a good place. Maybe not pre-pandemic, but getting there, making significant progress in working with kids and helping them get readjusted to interacting socially appropriately with their peers and with adults. So I think it would be a huge step backwards, maybe 2 steps backwards if we were even going to consider that. I mean, it's no secret. I'm a huge proponent for in-person learning. I don't think not only do students lose out, I also look at it that there's significant deficits and challenges that educators face in the delivery of remote instruction. And that's not a knock on teachers and staff. It's just a reality. I think it's a very difficult way to present teaching and learning in a virtual model, especially at the primary grades. I mean, those are the kids that I think suffered the most. And I would be hard pressed to say to those kids, I mean, we are seeing some spread, but the numbers in the schools being reported right now of positive cases, most of them are students and they're reported with mild symptoms, as Ms. Castillo mentioned prior to us going live. I think overall, you know, it's been pretty good, and we're going to continue to monitor it. I know we do have, and the State Department of Ed sees the urgency to have bigger discussions around this. So rather than our 3rd Friday of every month is usually a huge superintendent's only statewide call that's been pushed up a week, just to get some conversation and input from 169 of us across the state this week. So there could be other options that are being considered, but right now, you know, I think we need to stay the course unless something significant changes. I know what you're saying in terms of the number of positive cases and the spread, but it's a different predicament than when we opened and we talked as committees and a reopening committee, but it's also a different virus as well. And, you know, I think listening to a lot of the health professionals, this is something that we're going to need to live with for a while. It doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon. And I think the more we continue to put kids at a disadvantage, and our kids are the ones that are hurt the most. You know, we've talked about this. You know, our kids don't live in 3,500 square foot homes where they can isolate from family members and peers, where they have a workspace that's appropriate to learning virtually. I just think that it would do a lot more harm at this point than good if we even would consider something like that.
I agree with you, Mr. Testati. In fact, I was one of the biggest proponents of reopening the school in person.
I know.
And I still remain I actually tested, full disclosure, I just tested positive for COVID, but that's neither here nor there. I've been thinking about this for quite a while. And I don't know what would be our pivot point for shifting.
Well,
what would be and furthermore, it looks very, very bad for us to say it's safe enough for our kids to go to school. Yeah, right now I'm sitting in my bed at a meeting, which I would have to be anyway. But for the next meeting, when I'm done with quarantine, if our children are basically forced to school, because parents could be charged with educational neglect if they don't send their children to school. So basically, if they're forced to send their children to school, we should be forced to sit in a meeting in person.
Okay, no argument there. It was just suggested because there was an understanding and that there was going to be several board members tonight that could not make it in person, and it was going to be a little clunky having that many remote participants. But that was only an option that I threw out there for this meeting. I'm hoping we do return to in-person meetings. I think those are much more productive meetings as well. But I think, you know what, one thing you brought up, when we look at the metrics, nothing else is, you know, we're talking about, and there is discussion around the country about closing schools to go remote, health and safety. I see packed stadiums across this country, packed arenas. You know, so I think, you know, there's no restrictions on restaurants. There's no restrictions on businesses. So I'd hate to put any restrictions on children and their ability to interact with their peers, with their teachers, with the services that we provide that they desperately need. We've been able so far to get through the winter basketball season at our high schools without incidents of any quarantine. So I think overall we're in a different place, but in a better place than we were 12 months ago.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to get ready to turn it over to Mr. Weldon, but before I do, I wanted to let the record reflect Mr. Weldon is here. And once he has it, then I just want to make sure I pose a question to Mr. Sestani on this issue. Is there possible, I mean, I don't know, I know the numbers, we're monitoring the numbers right now, but with that being said, you know, just listening to the communities as well, because, you know, we may need to take a temperature of how the community is feeling about this right now. I know there are a lot of concerned parents, and, you know, there's a lot of, you know, there's both on both sides. But I think what we did in the beginning of this is that there was a choice given to parents when the numbers were at its highest. I'm not sure where the numbers are right now, but I'm wondering, if things do seem to climb higher, that option comes back to them, that they have a choice. And I know that we don't want to move backwards, but, you know, I know there's no fully remote or fully in person, you know, for how this is going to play out. But would that be something that we'd be looking to entertain, be it that it was part of the opening project?
The governor's executive order on that has expired, so there is no choice available for families to do that. If he does enact a new executive order, then, you know, we would have that conversation. Again, that presented a tremendous strain on our staff. I think if we had to go back to that for any significant period of time, we would push a lot of folks over the edge. That was extremely tough last year. We lost a lot of staff last year. In general, but also due to the fact of the toll that it took. We were hard pressed to find people to work summer programs and other things. They were cooked. But, you know, if that option does present itself through State Department of Ed and the governor's office, you know, then we could explore that. But it's tough right now, but I think everybody is more comfortable in the way we're proceeding forward. I know there are parents that have concerns. You know, I'm not here to tell anybody what to do, but speak to your doctor, speak to your pediatrician. We do have one of the lowest vaccination rates in the state, definitely in Fairfield County. I just find it a difficult pill to swallow when I have folks that are extremely concerned about the virus, yet are unwilling to even consider talking to a health professional about receiving the vaccine to protect themselves. That's just, you know, I'm trying to make sure that we put forth our best efforts to keep kids in school, provide them what they need. But at the same time, as we've heard a number of times throughout the pandemic, and especially over the last year since vaccines have been released, you know, everyone needs to do their part. And, you know, the numbers in Connecticut are very telling when it comes to how this impacts those who are vaccinated to those who are not vaccinated. I'm not a health professional. I'm not telling it, like I said, I'm not telling anyone what to do. but at least consider having a conversation with your doctor, with your pediatrician, if there's that level of concern. Because it's kind of a double-edged sword. If you're that concerned, but you won't even consider, what your doctor recommends, it's hard. It's hard to make that decision then and say, that I respect people's privacy, but at the same time, they have to respect the fact that we have 20,000 children to look out for. And, we're going on 24 months of this. 3 school years have been impacted. That's a significant period of time that those children will not have the opportunity to get back.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Castillo?
Yeah, I had a quick question. Firstly, I will share just from personal experience, because I also recently had tested positive. I'm now negative, but during that period of time, I just ask to have some grace for the parents, because I had also contacted my primary care doctor to get tested and to be seen as I normally would, and couldn't get an appointment until March, so right now I think the healthcare system is exasperated, and it's difficult, to get questions answered, or to get testing or basic needs. So I just on their behalf ask for some grace. But my other question was if and I'm not sure if this is available district-wide or if it's an option on a school-by-school basis. But is there an option for parents to apply for or to ask for permission for their children to have remote learning for a small period of time? Last week I was positive and I had the option to work remote, and I did. Right now, Mr. Sokolovich is online with us because he feels well enough to participate. And so he's, actively engaging, although sick. So is there a possibility where parents could apply for a small period of time for their students to participate remote, because it's, would you agree that it's better that they are watching and still learning, even if, if their parents decide that they're well enough to participate, than to not be participating in the school day at all during those times? If say it's a 14-day or a 10-day or a 5-day quarantine that they're not in school for?
Well, right now, the quarantine period now is 5 days from exposure or symptoms. So, and if children are sick, then they should, it's a sick day, right? So that's the other side of this, that as Mr. Sokolovic mentioned, you mentioned there are mild symptoms. There's less of the asymptomatic group because we are testing. You brought up a great point. For anyone exhibiting symptoms, we do have test kits that were distributed late last week to our school nurses. So those are available for students and staff that are exhibiting symptoms at no cost. So we are anticipating 2 more deliveries of those from the state at some point. So we do have tests that have been distributed for kids and for staff that are showing symptoms. No one has to wait any longer to try to schedule an appointment or go to a testing center. But if you're sick, you should get well. Work will be provided for you until your return, just as if it was pre-pandemic. If a child had the flu, child had bronchitis, strep throat, they missed a few days of school, they came back, they had an opportunity to make up their work, they could stay after school for extra help. So all those supports that have always been in place are still in existence.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. So that was the next part. I'm glad you asked that question. So we do have test kits both for staff and for students. A lot of the guidance around this has evolved with the information that health professionals have gathered over the last almost 2 years. And I think they've received a lot of feedback, obviously collected a lot of data around And I think that's why you've seen some shift in the length of isolation, the disbanding of, isolating everyone who may have come in contact but not exhibiting symptoms. So I think the new guidance has evolved and is evolving. And I think a lot of people, the feedback has been positive throughout the district from parents, because many parents would be angry when they saw a healthy child running around their home that wasn't able to go to school because they were considered a close contact. But we now can get a test kit in people's hands immediately through the nurse. This way, then they can rule out whether it's COVID or just the cold or the flu, because I think we're starting to see a little bit of both now. The flu season is in full effect. Health Department and Health DPH is saying that it is very rampant this year, the flu virus. So I think we're going to see a lot of people that are going to be out of work, out of school, feel better and come back. Ms. Baptiste Perez, you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, we're following the current CDC guidance for the 5-day quarantine, and that's regardless if they're still testing positive but are not symptomatic?
Correct. So it's 5 days, and then they can return unless they still have a fever. And then they have to be, if they continue, they have to be fever free for 24 hours.
Okay, and then I heard the debate regarding remote learning. Has it been expressed by any of the principals in any of the schools whether packets could be distributed to a child that's sick and in quarantine? 5 days is only technically 1 school week. And so it's almost the equivalent of sending like a winter break packet or anything to make sure a child's not left behind academically.
Yep. So we do have some folks that we hired using some of the ESSER money that are on part-time that do check in with students that are quarantining because of COVID and are able to work with them periodically throughout the day. So there is work provided on Teams. That's the beauty now of having one-to-one devices and the ability to post work on Teams. So kids are still engaged, and based on that engagement, that they're also considered present. They're not marked absent. They're called, quarantine present.
All right, is there anything else, Mr. Testani?
Well, one last thing I want to mention on a positive note, as everyone may have seen in their email, we did open after the break the FAME Academy, over being housed at Harding High School, our Performing Arts Academy that we've been prepping for over the last 8 months. So we're excited about that. Unfortunately, the weather kind of derailed the rest of last week, but we're back in session this week. So all, the early reports from day 1 and 2 have been extremely positive. Kids are really engaged. They're excited about this. So we're hoping that this becomes really a robust program that we can offer kids throughout the city of Bridgeport. The plan is also now to incorporate a middle school component on Saturdays next school year to kind of build the feeder program into the FAME Academy. So I just want to make sure, great job by Sarah Jane Henry, our Director of Visual and Performing Arts, for all the hard work her and her staff has put into making sure that this became a reality. We had initially talked about this, Alicia Robinson and I. It was kind of our little vision for now that we had some federal dollars, and Dr. Henry was able to come in and carry the ball and make that a reality. So I'm very proud that we've been able to do that for our kids.
Mr. Benahan, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Testani, how far, I don't know if you give this information really quick, COVID, do you know how many staff will you have out because they got COVID, the students, something like that? The little percent, or the percent is high?
Actually, we update the dashboard when we get reports. There hasn't been a huge number of cases reported since the break. There were significant numbers, apparently, of folks that tested positive during the break, but their quarantine period has expired, and they are all back to You know, we have some kids that have been reported out today. Again, mild symptoms, positive, and we do have some staff out sick. Not necessarily, I'm sure that, you know, not sure if they're COVID related or not. They could just be just regular sick days today. So not as high as prior to the break, though. We made you know, it was tough getting to the Christmas break. We had significant number of staff out the last few days, but that number today was much lower than it was prior to the break. So that's a good sign.
Thank you, Mr. Testani. No more question, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. So we're going to move on to, there is no old business to transact. New business, discussion and possible adoption of the 2022-2023 academic year calendar.
Mr. Chair, may I be recognized?
Oh, I didn't see your hand up.
I forgot to raise my hand.
Okay, go ahead.
We had skipped over the chairman's report as well as the committees that you chaired at the beginning of the meeting. And so before we move on to old or new business, start back.
Sure. All right, so Contracts Committee will be meeting in February. There's an RFP, it escapes me. What's the name of the RFP, Mr. Testani?
Which RFP is that one?
I'm asking.
The special education review. Yeah, so we're going out to requesting proposals to a review of special education throughout the district. It's been a significant period of time since that's been done. We're hoping to get a thorough evaluation and report back that we can work from to improve the delivery, the effectiveness, and the efficiency of the services we provide to students with IEPs throughout the district.
That's right. So we'll be looking for authorization to issue the RFP, and then we'll get responses to it that will be graded and approved at the board level.
Correct.
Are there any referrals for contracts? And we're just going through the committees that I chair. Is that right, Ms. Baptiste?
Yes.
Okay. Facilities, are there any referrals? Beyond
Yeah, it was one of mine, Mr. Chair.
The one you already made?
The one we talk about facility. I know 2021 and I got the information about. I always say about the security, what's going on, everything. So I hope this year we can have it. You know, the person they can bring in to us the information and when we're gonna have the facility committee meeting.
We'll have a facilities meeting in February. Governance, we're going to pick up where we left off in December with the discussion with the Make the Road Connecticut Youth Group regarding student transportation and the matter related to board policy regarding public comment. Are there any other referrals?
Mr. Chair, Central Magnet High School.
And the magnet policy for Central.
Thank you.
Personnel, are there any referrals for personnel?
Not yet, Mr. Weldon. We are in preliminary interview being set up for a couple of positions that will eventually land in the personnel committee, but that will probably be in about 2 weeks that we would need to convene a meeting if that's acceptable.
We met a couple of weeks ago to interview candidates for the assistant principal at BASIC. Did you make a decision on that?
Yes, we went with the same recommendation of the committee.
Okay. You want to say who that was?
Jamie Lynn is her name. She's currently works at Stratford High School and will now start as the assistant principal, filling the vacancy left by the death of Peter Ziegler at BASIC. Next Monday is the start.
Okay, thank you. All right. We did the superintendent's report, old business, new business, Discussion and possible adoption of 2022-2023 academic year calendar. This is an annual item that Mr. Testani prepares. That I believe was in your package.
It's pretty generic. We follow similar calendar with Fairfield County districts to make sure that those staff members that do live in surrounding towns, when their children are off, they don't have a hardship when it comes to childcare. It's pretty standard, 181 school days for children, 186 contractual days for teachers and staff. That extra 5 days before where teachers report allows us to do a lot of professional development the week before school opens. And we start school, a full day of school on a Monday. As I discussed prior to you arriving, Mr. Weldon, it is been more advantageous having school start on a full day on a Monday. We have less kids that and families that do not report the first couple of days as we did in the past when we started on the Thursday.
Any questions about the calendar? Okay. Is there a motion to adopt the calendar as presented?
So move.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Dennehy. There's second.
Second, Allen.
Second by Ms. Allen. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, next item is discussion and possible action regarding supplemental district employee compensation related to work performed during COVID-19 pandemic. The unions of the various employees we have approached myself and the superintendent and Mr. Sokolovic as the finance chair to express their feeling that the district should provide some sort of compensation, even if it be only symbolically, not necessarily massive monetarily, to acknowledge their work during the pandemic. It's not something that I can decide, but I agreed that I would take it here to the full board so that we could have that discussion. It's my understanding that a couple of the union leadership kind of made their cases during public comment. Am I correct in that understanding?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know what they said. I wasn't watching, but I was aware that they had signed up. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Testani to get into some of the backstory of all of this. We don't necessarily have to make a decision this evening. This is a big overarching discussion, and there's nothing wrong with having a discussion, taking a step back and thinking about it some, coming back in another couple of weeks after we've thought it over. So don't feel there's any pressure. This is just a preliminary discussion at this point. So, Mr. Testani?
Yeah, just to kind of fill in, there was a press conference held, I want to say prior to Thanksgiving. The unions were in front of Margaret Morton Government Center, and I believe, met with the mayor and his folks regarding premium pay for work, as you said, performed during the pandemic. There is, I guess, a willingness from the city folks, city side of this, to provide some compensation. Now, it is allowable under the American Rescue Plan. We're not clear, and we need a lot more clarification if this is even allowable to use American Rescue Plan ESSER funds. So there are two separate buckets. The municipalities received American Rescue Plan money, where the elementary, secondary schools received ARP ESSER. So just want to make sure that we are clear prior to any decisions even being made by the board, that it's allowable to use the money for those expenditures, and what percentage, if any. Initial discussions were inquired from our grants office to the State Department of Ed, and still a little vague on how that can be allowable. And there was some discussion that there needs to be an agreement in place prior. That seems to be some of the language that was used, which was not the case. We're kind of working backwards now in this request, because there should have been some parameters set up prior on what would constitute someone earning what they call premium pay. So I think there's still some questions that need to be answered, and also, you know, there are some questions as to what that would look like and where that funding, then what that means and the impact on children. So.
I see some hands raised. I'm gonna call them in the order that I saw them. Mr. Benahan, I think you were the first one.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Testani, thank you for the information, and I'm gonna say this very clear and very slowly so they can be in the record and everybody understand. I would like to get more information about this because I know what's coming in the agenda, so we can discuss, like you said, Mr. Chair, you know, more, and we can see what we can do. The only thing I can say is that I hope this money, where they come from, and I hope the staff receive it the way it is, because I know the staff that was always in the first place and they do a lot of things. That's what I get as I start searching, and that's what I send it to you guys, what I have, and I hope we can still have more information to see what we're gonna do. But my opinion is I hope the staff receive this because, you know, they work very hard. I love them to that, you know, to that, because they was always on the front. And like I always said, and this is not nothing against nobody, but the same way we vote and we make you, Mr. Testani, I know you have to be deal with this too. We make you happy to give you a nice raise. I hope all the staff receive the money the way it is, because they work very hard. And it was first, like you, Mr. Testani, you was on front line, staff was on front line, and you just want to be sure they receive the money. And I hope we are on the same page. So I just want to bring that to the record and to be sure everybody understand my point. No more question, no more comment, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, the next hand I think I saw was Ms. Brown, followed by Ms. Baptiste Perez. Go ahead, Ms. Brown.
Yes, I just want to know, is this going to be referred to finance to discuss in deeper detail, or this is?
We can.
Yeah,
I just, you know, they came to me and said, look, that this is what we want to try to do. And I thought I initially thought of just sending it to finance right off the bat. But then I thought, you know what, maybe it's better to have a larger discussion here. And if the group wants to send it to finance, then that's what we can do. Or if you just want to continue the discussion at our larger level. Either way.
I'm fine with either, but I definitely think as we start getting into the deeper details and more details about the funding that we're receiving, to where it's going to go, and if we can or cannot use, I definitely think Marlene, Ms. Siegel, and all the powers that be should be a part of that.
Okay, good enough. Ms. Baptiste Perez?
I just had more of a comment for the discussion. It sounds like from Mr. Testani, this is going to require additional legal interpretation, because it was a big factor of earlier of today's meeting, the applicability of remote learning. And I am not 100% knowledgeable of this, but there are constraints to employees that could work remotely. And so to the extent that remote learning did occur, we have to be cautious of making promises we cannot keep, and how the law will actually apply and apply these funds before, I guess, counting all your eggs before they hatch.
Fair enough. Mr. Skolovic? If you're talking, we can't hear you.
Sorry, thank you. I think this is definitely something that should be referred to finance, to be vetted through finance, because this issue is going to become one of emotions. While our staff is deserving of compensation, the matter is not could we. The matter is should we, because every dollar has to come from somewhere. ESSER funding is not a magical stream of money that comes out of nowhere. It is a limited bucket of dollars that go. We got to measure pros and cons, cost benefit analysis, and that's best done with an unemotional eye through the finance committee. Because say we got price tags I've heard is between $1 and $5 million for this. $1 million will pay for what? Maybe a couple of hundred hours psychological services for our students that they won't be getting. So we'll be redirecting money from children to adults. And this is something that we really, really got to take a critical eye to. Not that the staff doesn't deserve it. Everybody has worked hard through the pandemic, and everybody deserves it. It's not a matter of deserve. It's a matter of ability. And I think the best way to do that is to have a dispassionate eye through finance, look at it, and decide the pros and cons to refer to the board.
I think we need to have a better grasp of all the answers before we make any kind of informed decision. Ms. Castillo and then Mr. Lombard.
I just wanted to make a comment for the record. I also agree, of course, that our staff and teachers worked very hard during the pandemic. And I do think that we need to critically look at how the numbers pan out. But furthermore, whether or not this is a proper use of ARP ESSER funds, I'm not aware of. I know that ARP ESSER has outlined certain areas where the funding should be used. And unfortunately, to my understanding, I don't think that this is one of the areas that has been outlined. So beyond what the cost would be, we also need to see if this is appropriate use of funds underneath the what has been outlined by the ARP ESSER. So just keeping that in mind, I also feel that I'm not on the finance committee, and I would like to participate in the conversation if it's most appropriate in terms of processes to have it outlined in the finance committee and then brought before the board, then that's fine. But I do think that this is a conversation that needs to be expanded upon and discussed thoroughly by the board at large. Thank you. That's it.
Mr. Chair, before you go to Mr. Lombard, to Ms. Castillo's point, I did look extensively over the last couple of weeks at the ARP ESSER outlines. There is no mention specifically of this. The only mention of this is in the ARP funds that municipalities receive, not boards of education. They talk about that in that bucket of money. It is not spelled out anywhere in our dollars. That's why we're trying to get some clarity. And the only other local municipality that I'm aware of, or Board of Ed, that's doing this, and I think it, again, trying to get clarity from my colleague, I think it came from the municipality's bucket of money, is Stanford. And they gave their teaching staff that met the threshold $500, just to give you an idea of. That is the only one that I am aware of at this point. I'm not sure if others have done the same. But again, I think that came through the municipality, not the Board of Education. But I am going to confirm that with my colleague. Okay. But again, it's a lot. I think, like, Mr. Sokolovic said, I mean, people deserve, but I don't know what the parameters are, and we need to really be sure, because I don't want to have to then take that money if we're wrong from operating budget, because we just don't have it there.
Right. Mr. Lombard?
You're on mute.
Thank you. I swore I wouldn't do that. I just want to make a couple comments and some thoughts that are going through my head. one of the things you mentioned, Mr. Testani, about how this is going backwards, wasn't planned up front. And I think about people who, possible objections that could be brought forward with something like this. Something like this is meant to be a positive thing. People who, either people who decided not to move forward and maybe could state, well, if I knew there was going to be a compensation for it, maybe I would have stayed. Or people who already retired, that did work last year, but they're no longer working. You know, should they receive it? Or just those types of things. I think we have to remember that no good deed goes unpunished. And just to keep it in mind as we discuss this, obviously the specifics would be discussed through finance, but like Ms. Castillo said, the discussion and the decision would come to the full board, obviously. I think that, you know, these types of things need to be thought about when you think if it makes sense. Just keep those in mind for the discussion in the finance committee, whether or not I sit in on it or not, talk about all those factors. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on that.
Well, I think to your point, one of the reasons why they say a criteria needed to be set forth prior to is because what time frame are we looking at? From March 12th through the end of school year 1920, no one worked in the buildings except for limited staff, mainly food service folks that were having that direct contact with the public. For the most part, you know, so there was limited staff, some clerical staff and things of that nature. Security staff reported to make sure that, you know, the food distribution went smoothly, but again, not totally interacting. Not to say, but so we were closed for several months. We paid everyone per the governor full salary. So I guess that time frame should be excluded. I mean, from a municipal side, police and fire still had to report because they had to keep our streets and our community safe. So that time period needs to be removed. We reopened in September to in-person learning. So, you know, anyone, I guess, would be considered then on the front lines from there on forward. So we have to establish what time period that includes, because anyone who retired at the end of the 1920 school year was not at risk. You know, those teachers that they never went back to the building. So I think you're right. There needs to be, and that's why I think the criteria should have been discussed well in advance. This makes it hard to go backwards to say who's deserving and who's not, because I think everyone's deserving in their own way.
Yeah, I think we need to be really mindful that we don't inadvertently do something where we pit one group of employees against another based on their individual circumstances. It's not an easy discussion, but it's something that I think is detailed enough to be had at the finance level. We have a few more hands up. The first was Mr. Benahan, followed by Ms. Castillo again, followed by Ms. Brown. So Mr. Benahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to clarify because I'm listening to all of you, and I want to be sure that it's not money we taking from the children. The money in the ARPA is for hazard pay. That's what I understand it. That's what I'm searching. Maybe later we can discuss this situation. I'm not saying you can answer me back right now, but I'm agree what Ms. Castillo said before, and I agree that we have to bring it to the Finance Committee. But Mr. Destani, I don't want you to think like we are taking the money from the kids, and later people say, oh, they're hurting the kids because it's not. It's very clear in the documents. It's a lot of information to read in it there. And you have to understand, and one part you say just a few seconds ago, that nobody will walk in the building. I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, because that's why you said, because I know we got custodians, secretary, cafeteria was inside the building. So I don't want, you know, that's why I understand from you. And, you know, I want you to be clear and understand, and I'm going to repeat it again, and I hope our staff, they work very hard and they risk their life to get this money the way it is, because it's in the document, it's very clear in the ARPA. No more question, no more comment, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
That's the kind of discussion I would expect to have at the finance level. I don't want to get into that level of detail here.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
So next was Ms. Castillo.
I wanted to inquire about the context in which this was brought to the board to be an agenda item.
So it started, a couple of the unions that we share with the city, which is NAGE. You're familiar with NAGE?
Yes.
And AFSCME.
Mhm.
Those two unions have members who are city employees and members who are BOE employees. So it kind of started there with them petitioning the city for this kind of consideration. And then it kind of got expanded. Well, we have BOE employee members as well. So shouldn't we be talking to the BOE as well? Because the city was explaining to them that, not all your members are city employees. And then from there, it segued into the BEA because they too are BOE employees. And the union leadership requested a meeting with Mr. Testani, Mr. Gaudet from the mayor's office, myself, and Mr. Sokolovic to kind of pitch their case. And I explained to them, well, that's not something that we can make at our level. That needs to go to the full board. So I agreed, in all fairness, to just put it on the agenda so that the full group could consider it. I initially thought I would just automatically send it to finance, but I figured at least before we do that, we could at least have this discussion here. And if the group wants to send it to finance, then that's what we'll do, as opposed to my doing it. So that's kind of how it evolved over the past, I guess, couple of weeks ago.
So what was the conversation within the context of this school year, or is it within the context of the whole pandemic?
They didn't get into that level of
Okay.
specifics. They wanted something. An attempt was made to try to place some values, and I immediately stopped that because this is not like a negotiation. This is, we'll either do this or we won't. There's no give or take. This is totally within our discretion. So, when they started to try to take the discussion into dollar values and who should or shouldn't, that discussion was clipped because that's a discussion we should be having ourselves.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. Ms. Brown?
Sorry. I'm gonna put my hand down. I think you answered my question. I was kind of on the same lines of Ms. Castillo, so thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Again, it was just something that came out of nowhere a couple of weeks ago. I agreed to entertain it and hear what they had to say to see if it was board worthy. And I figured just send it to the board and let's all make a decision. Mr. Lombard and then Mr. Benahan.
Thank you. I just want to share the thought that's coming to my mind is recognizing everyone. I'll say that again. Recognizing everyone, every student, every staff member, every faculty, every administrator, everyone went through the pandemic and still going through the pandemic. And I'm not saying monetarily or possibly, I'm not saying getting into that, but I feel as though, kind of going back in a different way, Joe, Mr. Sokolovic, you were talking about the students, giving something to the adults, maybe taking away from the students. And I know Mr. Benahan was saying those monies can't be spent on the students. I'm not clear on that. But I feel as though something as a recognition of the battle wounds, of all of us, as opposed to just specifying certain workers with a monetary reward for their incredible work. It's a thought I wanted to share. I feel like, if anything, it's stopping and acknowledging in some way, some material way, but I wanted to share that.
Yeah.
Well, one of the guidelines for sure for the ARP money that the city is allowed to distribute, there is a threshold of income eligibility. So that is for sure. So we can't, even if we wanted to, provide everyone a monetary bonus because there are restrictions based on income level. The vast majority of our staff would receive it. They would qualify under the ARP guidelines, just not everyone.
Okay.
Could you?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
Yeah, I just want to ask, just for some clarity, since all of this is being discussed, obviously on the record, Mr. Benahan's point about the monies can't be spent on the students anyway, is that accurate?
No. So there is, I sent everyone a copy of the summary of ARP ESSER. They are different than American Rescue Plan. They're one and the same but separate. So the ESSER dollars have different ties, as you can see when you read it, for what is allowable expenditures, and the vast majority of it is to be spent on students and student programs, social emotional support. There's a specific 20% for our L population and our special needs population, monies that needs to go into facilities. So there is a breakdown, but again, different than American Rescue Plan that municipalities receive than school districts. So that's where I think there's some confusion. And I think that's why the initial request went to the city folks, because that's where those dollars are clearly spent, spelled out in their dollars, that it can be used up to $13 per hour for those workers, not necessarily that amount, with a cap of $25,000, which obviously is a very large number, but that is not spelled out in our dollars, and that's what we need clarity on before the finance committee meeting is convened.
But to be clear, the money could be spent on students and student programs, if not.
Well, it has to be spent.
Yeah, right. Well, I just want to make that clear, that it's not, that in fact, if it's spent somewhere else, maybe for a worthwhile cause, but if it's spent somewhere else, it can't be spent, therefore, on a student program. You can't do both at the same time. That's what Mr. Sokolovic was saying.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Benahan?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, and then I don't know, Mr. Stani. It's not the way we. I just suggest to make a special meeting with all the board members, and we talk about this situation with Mr. Stani before you bring it to the financial committee. So for me, I would suggest to have all the board members talk about the situation, and everybody be on the same page. We can talk. We can make the comment. As for me, I prefer that because if we're going to be financial in the financial committee, it's only the committee. Whoever's in the part of the committee can vote. They can talk. But I would prefer everyone, as a board member, sit down and talk more, discuss what we're going to do, so we can be on the same page. So because, like I say, it's fair, and it's fair that all the staff here from Bridgeport School, they work so hard, they receive this money correctly. Of course, following the protocol the way it is. So I suggest to have a special meeting, Mr. Chair. If we can do that, it will be much better for everyone being the same page. No more question, no more comment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So it was suggested to refer this to finance. Is there a motion and a second to do that?
Is that in lieu of a special meeting?
Yeah, let's get past this first, because it was initially suggested to have it referred to finance. So if somebody's inclined to make that motion, let's see if that gets any energy, and if not, we'll take it another way.
No, I'm sorry, John, but I just want to understand. So if it does go to finance, then we're not going to talk about it going to special meeting. It's okay. All right.
It's been referred.
Okay.
So is there a motion to refer this item to finance?
So moved.
Second.
So moved.
Okay. Moved by Ms. Allen. I'll say second by Ms. Brown. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Opposed.
Oppose.
Okay, Mr. Benahan and Mr. Lombard opposed. Motion carries. Before we adjourn, I first want to thank Ms. Brown for getting this started while I worked my way back here through a subway delay. I appreciate you starting things on time and moving the ball forward. Thank you for doing that. And I also want to acknowledge, if I may, Mr. Benahan, the passing of your mother. My sympathies to you, and I'm sure those at the board as well. It's not an easy loss for those of us that have gone through it, and you have my sympathy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, for 1 second, I would like to thank you all the board members who text me and emailed me, your support, and I appreciate that. I will never forget, and I know from heaven, my mom will bless you, each one of you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay, you're welcome.
Amen.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Allen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lombard. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the meeting is adjourned. The time is 7:51 p.m. Thank you. We'll see you all again in a couple
Good
of
night,
minutes.
everybody.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye. God bless you all.
Good night. Good night.